Belt paths on BareXYs can be a little confusing, so I'm just going to walk you through how I do mine. So to start out, we're going to take the belt, this little belt lock I designed, we're going to feed it onto the belt, little ways, then we're going to turn the belt back on itself so the teeth engage, and we're just going to slide the belt lock over like that. Now we're going to take this belt pin, and we're going to put it, make sure the grooves are facing away from where the belt's going, like so. Snug it down, and now we're going to do the same thing with the next belt. So we're going to take another belt pin, feed it through, fold it back on itself, about the same, snug it down. Now we're going to take the same belt pin, we're going to make sure the belts are going the same orientation, and we're going to snug this down again. Just work it on there. Okay, now we got that. We got our two belts on the belt pin like so. So now we're going to take it to the carriage, and we're going to feed it. Just take it in there, and it goes right in that slot. Now we're going to take both the belts, get them out of the way, make sure they're not tangled. And we're going to start with the bottom belt. So now we're going to feed it through. So to feed it through, we're going to go around this pulley. Just pull it all the way through. Okay, make sure it's not tangled. That looks good. Now we're going to take it and go around the motor. So we're going to go around the motor pulley right here. That's good. And now we're going to feed it through this carriage. To feed it through the Y carriage, we're just going to line that up and poke it through. Again, the whole time make sure the belt isn't twisted, so that's going to be a pain later to untwist. Okay, so we got through that carriage. Now we're going around the corner pulley. Bottom one again. Try and feed it behind there. Just wiggling it helps sometimes. All the way through. Pull it all the way. Now we're going to come to this other corner. Belt's still not twisted. Just going to slide it around there. Pull it through. Now we're going to go through this next Y carriage. All the way through. So I pulled it through, but now we're going to go back in here so it goes around this lower pulley here. Okay, the belt's all the way through, so now we're going to take another one of these belt locks, and we're going to put this, feed it through the belt again like we did earlier, fold it around, feed it through, and we're going to put another belt pin on for the other side, and pay attention to those grooves like we did before. Okay, that one's all good, so we're just going to let that hang. Now we're going to do the top belt. So it's going to be very similar, but it's kind of going to be going the other way. So we're going through this carriage, pull it all the way through, and now we're going to thread the needle again. This one's a little tough to get through. Sometimes if you take the belt you can kind of straighten it a little bit or bend it, whatever's going to help you. And there we go. So just bending it a little bit helped make sure I could get through there. So we don't have to worry too much about getting them set in the pulley like that, because they're going to keep falling off until the belt's nice and tight. So now we're going to go around this corner Sometimes it goes in the slot like that. I usually just keep feeding it through and eventually it'll pop out like that. Now, keep pulling the belt. Okay, so it's still not twisted and not wrapped around the lower belt. Now we're going around this other corner. Making sure it's still above the other belt. Now feed it through the Y carriage all the way through. Almost done. And around the motor. Get it on that pulley. Take it back through the Y carriage. And we're ready for the last belt lock. Feed the belt lock through. Wrap it around again. And now we're going to put it back on the belt pin with the other belt. Make sure the belts are facing the same way. And now we can snug this up. And so now we got it into place there. So now we can kind of start to get the belts pretty much aligned with their pulleys. But we're really going to worry about that once we start to tension them. Okay, so now to tension them, we're just going to loosen up these motors, brackets, just a little bit, so they can slide. So now when I slide this, you can see the belts are getting tight. So if it's loose, if you put it that way, it's going to be loose. If you pull it against the frame, it's going to get tight. So you can pull it tight a little bit. We can start to get these on. So you just kind of wiggle them. That one's on. All the bottom ones are on. Top one's looking good. Okay, so we can put a little bit of pressure so it's nice and tight. We're just going to tighten one of these screws, because we're going to maybe adjust it in a little bit. Okay, so now we can see the gantry is looking pretty crooked right now. So if we push it all the way to these end stops, both of these should be hitting these bottom brackets. So right now, if you come around the bottom of this one over to the left, you can see I'm pushing it all the way, but there's still a gap right here. We want that to be gone. So there's no gap on the far side, but a gap on the near side. So to fix this, we're going to loosen that motor we just tightened a little bit. We're just going to slide it forward a little bit to loosen the belt. And now we're going to loosen this right motor. And we're going to pull that one back, so that's going to straighten the gantry a bit. So I'm pulling it snug. And it still looks a little bit crooked to me. Just going to check real quick. So it's almost perfect, but not quite. So we need to loosen this left motor a little bit more. Just a hair. Tighten it back up. Loosen the right motor. And when you're going back and forth to get this gantry nice and straight, you can only tighten one on the motor. That'll be plenty to hold it. And then once you're all lined up, you can tighten it. Tighten both screws to lock it in place so it doesn't come loose when you're printing. So now, perfectly square. Belts are tensioned. We're ready to tighten up both screws on each motor mount. So the belts should be snug. They should be taut, but Not excessively tight, because that's just going to wear out all the bearings and wear out the belts. So that's looking good. Gantry square, everything moves smoothly, and all the belts are fully on their pulleys. Good to go.